Hailie Deegan might be moving up the Xfinity Series in 2024, and it could be with AM Racing. Sammy Smith will join Junior Motorsports in 2024 in the number 8 car, and Ryan Preece will return to Stewart-Haas Racing in 2024. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got to Nascar and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're going to have a start and talk about William Byron. As reported by Joseph Straley, does these really cool things called Straley Stats. It was reported by him that William Byron is the 6th youngest driver in Cup Series history to reach 10 wins. Among the drivers that are younger at the time were Jeff Gordon, who reached at 25 years old, I believe, or 24 years old. Richard Petty was 24, 25, and Joe Logano, I believe, was 25 years old at the time. It's really cool to see William Byron. I think is going to win multiple championships in the Cup Series. I think it's really awesome to see that he is the 6th youngest driver to reach 10 Crew Cup wins. I think that's a really impressive feat. Nonetheless, really awesome. Great to see him reach that really impressive and awesome feat. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Window of Hope. As Charlotte Motor Speedway announced yesterday that Kurt Busch announced a partnership with Erik Jones to continue the Window of Hope. The Window of Hope is one of the coolest things that's been happening at Charlotte Motor Speedway, basically in awareness of breast cancer. I think it's a really cool partnership that they've been doing for a very long time with Kurt Busch. And with Erik Jones, of course, joining Toyota, I think it makes a lot of sense for them to bring Legacy Motor Club into the fold and have this as a really cool partnership. So I think this is really awesome, really great, and glad to see that Erik Jones will be joining the Window of Hope group. I think it's really awesome. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Kevin Harvick. As it was announced on Monday evening that Kevin Harvick will be at RCR Fan Day in about a month from now or next week. Obviously, Kevin Harvick had a big partnership with Rich Schultz Racing for many years, drove for that team, and most of his success, well, at least the first half of his career, he drove for Richard Childress Racing to a lot of success. So I think it's really cool, especially with this being Kevin Harvick's final year. It's really awesome to see that Richard Childress is bringing Kevin Harvick out for the Fan Days. I believe Austin Dillon, I believe Austin Hill, Sheldon Creed, and Kyle Busch will all be at that RCR Fan Day as well next week when we head to Charlotte Motor Speedway at the Charlotte Roval. I think it's really awesome to see that. We've seen a lot of really cool things being done for Kevin Harvick this year in the final season, and I think a lot of people are paying homage and respect to Kevin Harvick with all the success he's had. So I think this is really awesome, really great to see, and nonetheless glad to see that Kevin Harvick will be at RCR Fan Days in 2023, which of course is his final season. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Talladega Knights. Now, Stewart-Haas Racing is doing something very cool this weekend, and they're paying homage to Talladega Knights. So Ryan Preece is going to be running the Wonder Bread scheme that Ricky Bobby ran in Talladega Knights, and Chase Briscoe is going to be running the Old Spice scheme that Cal Naughton drove in Talladega Nights, which of course is a duo of Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. This is a very awesome, and they've been paying a really good homage to this. Ryan Preece's acting skills, I think, were really incredible. I think Chase Briscoe and them have been really playing this bit really awesome. But it's really cool to see not only that, but you got Wonder Bread coming on and sponsoring in a NASCAR Cup car for the first time, I think, in a long time. And then, of course, Old Spice, which has been with Stewart-Haas Racing in the past. It's really cool to see that they are going to be sponsoring both Chase Briscoe and Ryan Preece this weekend. I love her doing this. It looks fantastic. The schemes look incredible and amazing. And it's really cool and awesome to see that they are going to be sponsoring at Talladega this weekend. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Beer Motorsports. As reported by Joseph Straley of TobyChristie.com, that Beer Motorsports will be skipping the weekend at Talladega Super Speedway. The reason, according to Joseph Straley, is that Austin Hill, for him to focus on the NASCAR Xfinity Series Plus. Which, to be honest, I don't think makes a lot of sense considering the Xfinity Series does have a race next week at the Charlotte Roval, and they're actually going to be doing double duty because Austin Hill will be driving that 62 car for Beer Motorsports at the Charlotte Roval. So it seems like a little bit of excuse maybe to save their equipment. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm a little shocked and surprised that they're not running this week, and considering the fact that this team has ran very well in the past and the super speedways. I remember 2019 when Brendan Gaughan was on front competing for the victory. Of course, it had to have that really awesome flip where he basically said, "Mom, I saved it, I'm okay." But really sucks to see that Beer Motorsports is not going to be running this weekend at Talladega. I think they would have had an outside chance of winning considering how good of a super speedway driver Austin Hill is. But I understand the decision, I respect the decision, but it does suck to see that they are not going to be running this weekend at Talladega. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Kyle Kirkwood. As it was announced yesterday that Kyle Kirkwood has signed a multi-year contract extension with Andretti Global and will continue driving the number 27 for the team for many years to come. Kyle Kirkwood had a breakout year in 2023, scoring 2 victories in a 2023 season, that being the Long Beach Grand Prix, and also at the Nashville Street Course. Kyle Kirkwood, I think, is a very, very talented driver, and I think he could be a championship threat this year in 2024, which is next year, I should say. I think he's going to be a really, really solid contender. I think he's going to do a really good job next year, and I think this is well deserved. Now, it doesn't say how long the extension is, but I imagine it's probably at least a 2 to 3 year extension, and you want to keep Kyle Kirkwood around with how much talent the guy has. I expect him to be a championship threat and a championship contender in the 2024 IndyCar season. Nonetheless, awesome and great to see that he will be running if Andretti Global here in 2024, and at least for the next few years. It was expected he was going to return to Andretti Global, but it's good to see they've locked him up at least for the next few years and will continue driving for the team in 2024. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about David Gillan. As it was announced yesterday afternoon that David Gillan is going to drive the one for Trion Garage this weekend at Talladega Superspeedway. David Gillan historically tends to run all the Superspeedway races with the team he's driven for. He obviously did that with DGR. He did that with Busch Motorsports, one when Todd Gillan was driver KBM at the time. And now once again will be back racing at Talladega. David Gillan is, like I said, a really, really good super speed racer, and I think David Gillan actually has a really good chance and a really strong possibility of maybe winning this race. Trion Garage and Super Speedways has shown a lot of pace and a lot of speed this season, and I think, like I said, this is a really good decision to bring David Gillan into the fold, of course, being the owner of Trion Garage. I think it's going to be really good help for the team, and I think David Gillan, like I said, has a great chance to win this weekend. We'll see what happens, though, but nonetheless, awesome and great to see. And David Gillan will be driving for Trion Garage this weekend at Talladega. Really looking forward to that and excited to see him back behind the wheel this weekend at Talladega. I think he's got a great chance and opportunity to win the Truck Series race. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Chandler Smith. As it was announced on Monday morning that Chandler Smith will drive the 25 truck for RWorld Racing this weekend at Talladega Superspeedway. Chandler Smith currently competes in the number 16 car for Kaulig Racing in the Nascar Xfinity Series on a full-time basis and has scored 1 win so far this year in the Xfinity Series. That, of course, coming in Richmond earlier this year. But he's come up short of winning some other Xfinity Series race. They go back to Vegas earlier in the year. We had the best car in the field and unfortunately lost on the last lap to Austin Hill. He's also made select Cup Series starts this year and had 1 top 20 finish, that coming at Richmond where he finished in 17th place. Now, obviously, why is he driving for RWorld Racing? Well, remember, RWorld Racing announced about a week or two ago that they had cut Matt DiBenedetto early. Matt DiBenedetto already announced intentions to be leaving the team at the end of the 2023 season, but the team cut him 3 weeks early, which is a little bit of a surprise considering Matt DiBenedetto is the defending winner of this race. And in the press release that they put out, they kind of made a little bit of snide comment saying that Matt DiBenedetto is the defending winner of this race, and I feel like they should have given Matt DiBenedetto the rest of the year. Now, look, I actually like that they're bringing Chandler Smith in, don't get me wrong, but Chandler Smith historically has not been the greatest super speed racer in the world. So maybe, I don't know, they could have brought someone maybe even like Noah Gragson, perhaps, who actually is a really good super speedway racer. He's been rumored to maybe be headed to RWorld Racing in 2024 in the Truck Series, but I understand why they brought Chandler Smith in to drive the 25 truck as part of the Chevy camp and needed someone to come into play. The question will be who will drive those trucks the last 2 weeks. It's been something that has not been decided at this point yet. There's been rumors about the son of Curtis Sutton, Dawson Sutton, may be getting a start this year in the Truck Series, and I imagine Noah Gragson could run at Homestead, considering Noah Gragson is a really good driver at Homestead. Maybe we see him in the truck. Nonetheless, really, really interesting to see, and we'll see how Chandler Smith can do this weekend with RWorld Racing. Hopefully, he can have a strong run with the organization this weekend at Talladega Superspeedway. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Texas TV ratings from this past weekend. So, according to Adam Stern, USA got a 1.16 rating and 2 million viewers for Sunday's NASCAR race at Texas. That is up from a 1.11 rating and 1.908 million viewers in 2022. Keep in mind, last year there were weather delays and rain delays that came in halfway through the race, and that's why there was a little bit of a drop of viewership in 2022. Nonetheless, it's really awesome to see TV ratings up for this weekend at Texas Motor Speedway. 2 million people on USA is actually really good numbers, all things considered. And you know what? We've got the last 6 races on NBC, so hopefully we can continue this high road because the last 2 weeks previously had not gone really well for the TV ratings. Star 500, I believe, have been down a little bit from 2022. Bristol was down like 10 or 11% or like 19%, I think, from 2022. And I believe also Kansas had been down just a little bit, but not down too much from 2022. But it's good to see the ratings drop. Obviously, Texas is a pretty big market. You've got the Dallas-Fort Worth market that's really coming into play, which is a huge reason why the TV ratings, I think, went up this time around. You had a lot of people tuning in, despite the fact I don't think the racing product Texas this past weekend was really, really good. Texas, like I said, has a massive, massive market. It's a huge reason why I think a lot of people decided to tune into the event. Nonetheless, really great to see that at least the TV ratings are up for this weekend, and hopefully the TV ratings can continue to go up in more weeks going forward. I think it's going to be really sketchy if we see TV ratings go up in the future, but nonetheless, at least for this weekend, the TV ratings were up, and it's really good to see. Hopefully a lot of people tune in to Talladega, and we continue seeing increased ratings for the rest of the year, because it started off really, really bad. They got good in the middle of the year, but they're starting to drop off again. You can't use the NFL excuse, because we did go up against the NFL during the race, but the fact we did have an increase in TV ratings, at least this time around, was really awesome and good to see. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Denny Hamlin. Now, Denny Hamlin, of course, has his Actions Detrimental podcast, and he was talking about the playoff format. Basically, Jared Allen, who's his co-host, I think his PR rep in the NASCAR Cup Series, basically sent him a list of the Winston Cup points format. And during that discussion, Denny Hamlin decided to call the playoff format Mickey Mouse. Now, that Mickey Mouse term has come up over the course of the last few years, really since 2020, when Chase Elliott, of course, won his first NASCAR Cup Series championship, and that term has been coming up a lot when Jimmy Johnson also mentioned that as well, and that's been part of sports culture for the last few years. I personally do not like calling something Mickey Mouse. However, I will say this when it comes to the playoff format. I will say it's better than previous playoff formats like the one we had in 2014 and 2016. That format was really, really bad where you really didn't get a lot of playoff points. At least with this current playoff format, you do end up getting your playoff points and your stage points, and the regular season does matter just a little bit. But personally, if we did have to ever change this format, I think NASCAR is not going to change this format anytime soon, simply because of the fact that we've had this format now for like technically 10 years, and we've only had to change the iteration in the last 7 years. So you're not going to have a change in iteration anytime soon. And I think ratings, at least in some senses, have gone up just a little bit and have kind of stabilized a little bit, and you're starting to get a lot of fans who are coming around with this playoff format. Personally, if I had to choose a playoff format that I would love to go back to in the future, I would love to go back to the format that we have from 2004 to 2006, or go back to the format where we had maybe a couple extra cars, maybe up to 12 cars. Because I'll say this, I'm not a fan of the winning your in system. I don't think a driver should be guaranteed into the playoffs based off of winning a race. I don't think that's fair. You should not be locked in based on winning the Daytona 500. And I don't think one race should decide the champion. For me, I would go back to the original Chase format, or the second format they had in 2007, where you have 12 drivers get in at the most, and you have 10 races aside. Therefore, is a lot more legitimate, because they're talking already about adding more road courses and more super speedways to the schedule in the future, and that's going to continue to make this playoff format very, very illegitimate. Again, I think it's better now what we had a few years ago in 2016, but it still needs some kinks, and I think to win one race to decide a championship, I think that is very, very gimmicky and really, really stupid in some senses. Nonetheless, I don't think they're going to change anytime soon. I would love for them to make some changes in the future, but right now, I just don't think they're going to be changing it in the foreseeable future, because it's been something we've had now, at least for the last few years. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Brody Keselowski. Now, it was reported by Adam Stern in VA Sleuth on Monday late afternoon that Brody Keselowski is hoping to compete in up to 3 NASCAR Cup Series races in 2024. Brody Keselowski, for those who don't know, is leading the V8 Supercars Championship, of course, series where Shane Van Gisbergen came from. Obviously, Shane Van Gisbergen will be running at least with Trackhouse on a part-time basis in the Cup Series, and will have a development deal with the team in 2024. Now, the big question, Brody Keselowski, like I said, he made his debut at the Indy Road Course. I believe ended up finishing 22nd, had some pretty good pace in the race as well, and nearly made it to the final round in qualifying, despite not really having a lot of on-track experience before getting into the next-gen car. Now, what team would he compete for if he does return and make a select few starts? Well, I believe that he will be running for Richard Childress Racing. Remember, he made his debut with RCR in that number 33 car, and a big reason for that is because of the Erebus Racing connection. Erebus Racing has a connection with Joe Gibbs Racing and Richard Childress Racing in the United States. So that would be the team he most likely compete for. Now, what races would he run? Well, the big thing is with the schedule. The reason he has not made a decision in regards to schedule for 2024 is because the NASCAR Cup Series schedule has still not been released at this point. And keep in mind, we are getting really close to end of September, and that has not been released. I would imagine that if the Chicago Street Course does come back next year, which sounds like there's a good chance of that returning in 2024, I would imagine that he more than likely will end up running that race in 2024. I would also think that there's a few other races that he could run, maybe run like Sonoma perhaps, maybe run as Circuit Americas. I do think that there's a few races that we could see Brody Keselowski end up running in 2024. I think he did a really solid job, and I think the more experience that Brody Keselowski does end up getting, I think the better that he's going to end up performing in the future. So nonetheless, I really hope we see Brody Keselowski in a few races in 2024. And again, I think it would be in that number 33 car. Maybe he eventually, very similar to Shane Van Gisbergen's gotten, maybe he gets a development deal and a development contract with the team. So I think it's really awesome and great to see that we're going to see Brody Keselowski likely back in 2024. I think it's really cool that they're looking at adding for more races next year, and good to see that we may see Brody Keselowski once again in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2024. So I think he was a really cool addition last year, and I think he will once again be a really cool addition this year in 2024 going into next season. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Charlotte Roval. Now, there was a post that was put out on Reddit, and it came from the Dale Jr. download. And according to what Dale Jr. said on the Dale Jr. download at the 34-minute mark, according to him, the Charlotte Roval is going to be gone at the end of 2023, and likely we're going to be returning to the Charlotte Oval in 2024. This is not very, very surprising. There's been a lot of rumors circulating in regards to the Charlotte Roval potentially returning ending in 2023, and the Charlotte Oval coming back in 2024. Now, why would the Charlotte Roval go away at the end of 2023, and why would we return to the Charlotte Oval in 2024? Well, one big reason is because of the TV ratings. It's been the cutoff race for the last few years, and every single year the TV ratings have gone down a pretty significant number. If I'm not mistaken, last year's Charlotte Roval race only had like 2 million viewers overall. The previous year in 2021 had 2.2. Then 2020 had 2.4 or 2.5. Every single year there's been a viewership decrease. Road course race in general, unless it's the second race of the year after Daytona 500, those races tend to not have the greatest rating, unless it's the Chicago Street Course, which had, I think, the highest TV rating for the viewership for NBC since 2017 Brickyard 400. I think like 4.5 million people tuned into that race, even despite the rain delays that came into play. The second big reason is because the racing on the road courses has not been as good with the next-gen car as I think the racing has been on the intermediate tracks. And you go back to the Coke 600 that has taken place this year, it has been the last 2 years, it's been a can't-miss event. 2022, we had a lot of cautions take place, but it was really, really great racing and a solid finish. And I think I said this last year, but it was the best race of the 2022 season. And 2023 did not disappoint either. It was one of the best races once again in 2023. And I think more people would actually show up as well. Yes, I do agree that not all tracks should have 2 dates, but I think if we're going to have 2 dates next year, Charlotte definitely deserves it. It's a hometown for a lot of these teams, and I think it makes a lot of sense for it to have 2 dates in 2024. So do I think it happens? Absolutely. If Dale Jr. is mentioning there's a really great chance and really great possibility of it happening, I think it's going to end up happening. I think it will once again be the cutoff race. Now, if the Charlotte Roval does go away, what road course comes in? Well, there's been a lot of chatter, rumor, speculation that there may be another road course coming in, and that is Watkins Glen. One of the reasons why they hasn't been announced yet is because of the camping situation. Again, camping is a big thing, and a lot of kids are in school at the time when the race is going on if they were to move it in September. The reason they've had it in August is because of camping situations. So nonetheless, I think that Watkins Glen, though, will move to the Plaza. I think he'll move to the second race of the round of 16. That's my prediction. I predicted that yesterday when I did the schedule predictions, and I think that will end up happening. But The Charlotte Roval being gone is not a surprise. It's been rumored for the last few months. And again, there's also a lot of talk, which means less road course on the schedule next year. It sounds like instead of having 6 road courses, there might be 5 on the Cup schedule in 2024. And again, I personally do believe that there's too many road courses on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule, and they do need to downsize the amount of road courses we have. Nonetheless, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in regards to the future, but it sounds like the Charlotte Roval might be going away at the end of 2023. I like the Charlotte Roval, but I think it's time to go ahead and add the Charlotte Oval back in 2024. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Hendrick Motorsports. As they announced something really, really cool yesterday, they're going to be bringing the 17 car once again back in 2023 for 2 more races. They're going to be running at the Charlotte Roval in next week, and they're also going to be running at Phoenix in the season finale. First, Rajah Caruth is going to be driving that number 17 car at Phoenix Raceway. This is a really, really great opportunity for Rajah Caruth. Rajah obviously has made quite a few starts in the NASCAR Xfinity Spurs. Most of them have come for Alpha Prime Racing. He's had some pretty good runs with Alpha Prime Racing in 2023, getting a couple top 20 finishes. But this is going to be his best opportunity he's ever had in his NASCAR career, because I think Rajah honestly could go out and win in this car. Now the question will be, will he have Hendrick cars on that car, or will he have some partnership where Ryan Pisana goes ahead and design? I think it'd be really cool if Ryan Pisana came in and designed his car, which I think he's indicated he might go ahead and do that. But this is a really cool opportunity for Raj. He's had really good speed this year in the Truck Series as well. And I think he's one of the most improved drivers, and I think it's a fantastic opportunity. He's had some connections with Hendrick in the past. Obviously, he drove for Spire Motorsports in the Truck Series last year, which, of course, he had a partnership with Hendrick Motorsports. But the other really, really cool thing that is going on is that the driver of the 17 car, the Roval, is going to be Boris Said. Yes, you heard that right. Boris Said is making his return to the NASCAR Xfinity Series and will be driving the 17 car this weekend. This is a really awesome and great opportunity for Boris Said. This is likely going to be Boris Said's final race. And a lot of people are wondering, how is Boris Said driving a 17 car? Well, according to an article from Racer, apparently he's had a long-term partnership with Hendrick Motorsports for the last decade in some instances. And he's driven, of course, some decent rides in the past, but this is going to be a career opportunity for Boris Said. And he's going to be in a car that is going to be capable of winning races. We've seen drivers like William Byron do pretty good in this car. They haven't won yet. Kyle Larson's come close to winning. I will go back to the Sonoma race where Kyle Larson dominated in that car but didn't get the victory. Go back to Darlington last year. We had one of the best cars in the field too, and he didn't get the victory either. I think Boris Said legitimately, who is a legend of road course racing, I think he can honestly go out and win this race. I know it's crazy to say for a 61-year-old, because I think he's going to be the oldest driver who's ever driven a Hendrick Motorsports car ever. So it's really just so cool that Boris Said is getting this opportunity and shot. I never would have thought that Boris Said would come back to Xfinity, but not only back to Xfinity Series, but back in a legendary car like the 17 car. It'd be really cool for him to get that 17 car back in victory lane with the homage of Ricky Hendrick. So this is a really cool opportunity for both drivers, that being Boris Said and Rajah Caruth, and I hope they can make the best of it. I think both of them can honestly win, and this is career opportunities for them. Nonetheless, amazing and glad to see that both drivers will be driving for their team in 2023 at the Roval and Phoenix. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Joe Gibbs Racing's Xfinity Series program for 2024. Now, we're going to be talking about a certain driver who has been driving for Joe Gibbs Racing here at the end of the episode. But Joe Gibbs Racing's Xfinity program is a lot of talk about what the program is going to look like for in 2024. Well, according to Dustin Albino, who works at J-Ski, he reported that Steven Souza told him last week that they're likely going to have 3 cars in 2024. They're going to have 2 full-time entries in 2024 and 1 all-star car in 2024. Let's go ahead and start with the all-star car. So who do I think will be driving the all-star car in 2024? Well, I would imagine there's a couple drivers. John Nemechek and Ty Gibbs more than likely will drive in that car at some point, and they're going to get to run as many races as they want to because they've not reached restrictions. To run an Xfinity Series, the Truck Series, and get the restrictions put on you, you have to have 3 or more years of Cup Series experience. John Hunter only has 1 full-time season, and Ty Gibbs will only be in his 2nd full-time year as well. So both of them will get to run as many Xfinity Series races as they want to. There's a chance that Ryan Truex potentially also could drive in that car as well, but we'll talk about Ryan Truex here in just a second. But also William Sawalch more than likely will get some starts as well when he turns 18, and it sounds like he'll be full-time with Joe Gibbs Racing in 2025 in one of their flagship cars. William is the next driver in the TRD development program going into the future, and I think he'll make some select starts in that car, which I think has been confirmed once he turns 18. He'll make select starts with Joe Gibbs Racing. Also, I think Corey Hamlin will make a few starts as well. Let's talk about the other two full-time entries. With the 18 car and the 20 car being available next year in 2024, who do I think has a chance to get the respective rides? Let's start off with the 20 car. I think this is going to go to Ryan Truex. Ryan Truex already has a contract with Joe Gibbs Racing for next year, at least on a part-time basis. And Ryan Truex, of course, did have a very successful run with the select race he did run. And obviously, Mark Truex Jr. coming back. He wants to run full-time in the Xfinity Series in 2024. And I think Ryan Truex is deserving to run full-time in the Xfinity Series in 2024. And if he does run full-time, I believe that we are going to end up seeing him be a championship threat and contender. I think he'll win at least 2 or 3 races and maybe even more, and probably end up in the flagship car, because the 20 car, of course, was a flagship car, with John Henry Macheco, of course, is moving up to the Cup Series full-time in 2024. Let's talk about the other car, the 18 car. Obviously, talking about Sammy Smith here in just a little bit at the later portion of this episode, but that car is also going to be available in 2024. Now, there's a couple drivers who could get an opportunity and chance to drive the 18. First one being Trevor Bayne. Trevor Bayne's made some starts with Joe Gibbs Racing the last 2 years, and honestly, Trevor Bayne's done a very, very good job the last 2 years. And he does have a little bit of sponsorship in funding as well, and he does want to return to NASCAR full-time in 2024, which I can honestly see him getting the chance and opportunity to run full-time, because I think Joe Gibbs would love to give him that chance and opportunity, so I think he would be a championship threat and contender if he got the 18 car. Another driver who could drive the 18 car next year is Riley Herbst. Riley Herbst has been a lot of rumor and chatter circulating about a former Joe Gibbs Racing driver returning to Joe Gibbs Racing in 2024. Remember, Riley Herbst did drive for JGR in 2018 and part-time in 2018, ran part-time in 2019, and also did make some full-time season in 2020. So he could go there. He's got funding with Monster Energy, and I think Joe Gibbs Racing is looking for some funding. And then finally, I'm going to mention Matt DiBenedetto. Matt DiBenedetto is a former Joe Gibbs Racing driver. He's been mentioned at points for maybe a Joe Gibbs Racing ride. I think he's the least likely of the 3 drivers to go there, but Matt DiBenedetto, of course, does not have a ride for next year. If he went to JGR's Xfinity program in 2024, I certainly think Matt DiBenedetto would be a championship threat and a championship contender. It's going to be very interesting to see who gets the rides for 2024, but it does look like that Joe Gibbs Racing's Xfinity program will have 3 cars once again in the 2024 season. And now we're going ahead to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Aric Almirola and Stewart-Haas Racing. Now, we'll be talking about the driver of the 41 car for 2024 in just a short bit, but let's talk about some things that Bob Pockersoni yesterday in regards to Aric Almirola and Stewart-Haas Racing. So, it sounds like the Stewart-Haas Racing is going to stay a 4-car team in 2024. There's been some chatter recently over the last month or two since August started that potentially Stewart-Haas Racing could sell at least up to 1 or 2 charters at the end of 2023. But remember, they have a contract with Ford currently that goes through the 2024 season. So they can't break that contract. And how would they break that contract? Well, they would have to sell their charters. Well, it sounds like they're going to stay a 4-car team. And a big reason behind that is, I talked about it last week, there might have been a chance Aric Almirola retiring. Well, according to some industry chatter recently, it does sound like the Stewart-Haas Racing's potentially going to keep Aric Almirola, and he's likely going to be returning to that number 10 car in 2024. Now, I know some fans are going to be really disappointed if Aric Almirola does end up returning to Stewart-Haas Racing in 2024, considering Aric Almirola has struggled the last 2 years. But I do want to pump the brakes on that. I don't blame Aric Almirola for the struggles of Stewart-Haas Racing. The team in general has been bad the last few years. And let's go back to earlier this year. Remember, Aric Almirola drove an RSS racing car. Yes, he had support from Stewart-Haas Racing, but he drove an RSS racing car at a road course, which historically, Aric Almirola has not been that good at road course in his career. He drove that 28 car and got it to victory lane. So Aric Almirola is not the problem with Stewart-Haas Racing. And let's not forget, in 2018, he made it to the round of 8 of the playoffs and had a chance to make it to the championship 4. It was right in the potential to win that Phoenix race and make the final 4, and got a win that year, as when there were a couple opportunities and chances when SHR was good, that he had a chance to go out there and win races in 2018, also in 2020 as well. He showed a lot of pace and speed, and of course won that New Hampshire race in 2021 as well. Eric Almirola knows how to get it done. It's just that Stewart-Haas Racing itself is the problem currently at the moment. But if Eric Almirola does decide to go ahead and retire at the end of the 2023 season, who would take over the number 10 car? Well, it sounds like, according to Bob Pockers, that Cole Custer is the most likely candidate to take over the 10 car if Eric Almirola retires. Now, I'm not going to put full blame on Cole Custer for the struggle with Stewart-Haas Racing, but Cole Custer did not run really, really good with Stewart-Haas Racing in 2020 and 2021. And to be fair, in 2020, he did make the playoffs, got that really impressive win at Kentucky, but if that late race restart didn't happen, he would not have any wins in his Cup Series career. And he did struggle the few years he drove for Stewart-Haas. But again, I think a lot of that struggle was more on Stewart-Haas Racing than anything else. But go back to last year as well. He did not do great in the 41 car, but again, SHR was hit or miss last year, but they were better in 2022 compared to where they are in 2023. And I think Cole Custer would be in a much worse position right now if he stayed in Cup in 2023 than he did in 2022. I think he's the most likely, though, to replace Eric Almirola because of the family connection. Obviously, his dad is the president of Stewart-Haas Racing, so of course, you do have the family connection that is coming into play currently at the moment. Nonetheless, I think at this point it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with that car. Obviously, let's talk about a 77 car transition to that for a minute. I think Carson Oswald is most likely going to be in that 77 car next year. And then, of course, with the 16 car in Cup, that's a little bit undetermined. Matt DiBenedetto could end up in that car next year in 2024, but also Ty Dillon and Noah Gragson are mentioned as possibilities. Silly season is going to be very interesting going into 2024. We'll see what happens in regards to ends up in those respective rides in the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series season. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next major story of today's episode as we're talking about Sammy Smith. Now, there have been some rumors in regards to Sammy Smith and him potentially moving to Junior Motorsports in 2024. Well, yesterday it was officially announced that Sammy Smith will be leaving Joe Gibbs Racing at the end of 2023 and will be driving the number 8 car for Junior Motorsports starting in 2024. He'll be joining on a multi-year deal with the team, so he'll be with the team also in 2025 and potentially in 2026 as well. And on top of that as well, Sammy Smith will be sponsored by Pilot Flying J for the majority of the 2024 season. In my personal opinion, when it comes to picking up Sammy Smith, this is a pretty big pickup for Junior Motorsports going into 2024. Because Sammy Smith was one of Toyota's biggest prospects. And Sammy Smith is only 19 years old, has already won a race so far in 2023, won at Phoenix earlier this year, I believe at the age of 18 at the time, which of course he's the youngest winner in Phoenix Raceway history. And he currently is still in the playoffs, being sixth in position, I think 6 or 7 points above the cutoff line, and has a really good chance to make the round of 8 as well. Yes, at times he's struggling in the NASCAR Xfinity Series here, but I also think he is young, so I think he's going to get better in 2024. I think this is a major, major steal for Junior Motorsports. And he really is a diamond in the rough when you think about it, because not only do I think Sammy Smith is a very, very talented driver, but one thing that he brings is funding and sponsorship. And you think about it as well. This is a little bit of a surprise, but this also isn't the biggest surprise in the world because Pilot Flying J is a former sponsor of Junior Motorsports. They sponsored Michael and I joined the team in 2017, and they were sponsored Junior Motorsports up until 2021. Then they left after 2021. Michael and I retired from the NASCAR Xfinity Series, retired from NASCAR in general, and of course they were back and were with Sammy Smith in the Xfinity Series, and of course in the Truck Series and ARCA as well. But going back to talk about Sammy Smith, I think he's going to be someone who could be a championship threat next year in 2024. And a big reason for that is because Junior Motorsports has gotten faster throughout the 2023 season. We've seen Justin Allgaier be a championship threat, already scored 3 wins this year, probably should have won that Texas race last week as well. I think Justin Allgaier could be the one that could steal the championship away from Austin Hill or John Hunter Nemechek. And then you've also got Sam Mayer, who's gotten 2 wins this year. Yes, he's below the cutoff line currently at the moment, but Sam Mayer has had a really good year. His sophomore full-time year has been really, really strong and could still have a chance to win the championship if he can survive the Roval next week as well. And then you have Brandon Jones, who I think has been hit or miss this year, but Brandon Jones has been getting better as the year has progressed. And then, of course, Josh Berry, who, while he hasn't had a win this year, he's been pretty solid on the stats. And, of course, he's going Cup racing with Stewart-Haas Racing in 2024. With Sammy Smith joining up with Junior Motorsports 2024, this sets their lineup. You got Justin Allgaier returning, which is confirmed after winning at Bristol. Justin Allgaier, like I said, having a great year. You don't want to get rid of Justin Allgaier. There have been some chatter, at least at the beginning of the year, about him maybe going to College Racing in 2024. But it's really good to see that he is going to be returning to Junior Motorsports. And why would you get rid of him? Over 20 wins at this point. Great decision to bring him back. Then, of course, you have Sam Mayer going to be with the team next year in 2024 once again. Sam Mayer's been having a great year, and I think he'll be a championship threat and contender. And next year, the goal for Sam Mayer is going to be to go ahead and try to win the championship. And then you've got Brandon Jones. Now, look, Brandon Jones has struggled this year in the NASCAR Xfinity Series at times, but most of his good stats have come in the second half of the year. And I think Brandon Jones is only going to get better in 2024. And I think Brandon Jones will make the playoffs next year. And I think Brandon Jones is going to have a much better year in 2024 than he did in 2023. And then you have Sammy Smith coming in. I think this is a great decision to bring him into the fold. But one of the negatives for them is that Toyota. Toyota has lost one of their top prospects. And this is now in the last 2 years, 3 really talented drivers lost. Of course, they lost Kyle Busch, who went over to drive for Rich Schultz Racing. They lost Kyle Busch Motorsports. Yes, he gained Trion Garage, but they lost a really strong team as well. And then, of course, you do have a couple other things that were lost. You had basically lost Chandler Smith. Chandler Smith, who I think could have been someone who could have been really successful with the Toyota pipeline, maybe gone to Joe Gibbs Racing in the future. You lost Chandler Smith, who I genuinely believe could have been a championship contender with JGR this year. And then finally, now you're losing Sammy Smith, who I think was your top prospect, because John Hunter Nemechek is moving up to the Cup Series in 2024 to drive for Legacy Motor Club. And while I think that he was only going to be there for next year, he was eventually probably going to get integrated into the Joe Gibbs Racing pipeline, and there was going to be a ride available. But you do have to remember that Sammy Smith is only 19 years old, so he's got a lot of time for he could go Cup Series racing. And obviously, Junior Motorsports, if they ever wanted to, they could move up to the Cup Series in the future if they ever made that decision, because Junior Motorsports at times indicated they do want to go Cup racing. Obviously, charters are now worth $40 million, so I think that is going to be much tougher than in the future. I think it's going to be a lot tougher to get charters and acquire charters. Nonetheless, so I think this is a great decision for Sammy Smith's future. I think it's going to be awesome to see him joining the Junior Motorsports pipeline. I think that he'll have a very solid year in Xfinity. I think he's going to be a championship threat and a championship contender in the A car. I think it's a great call for them. I don't think it's a downgrade. I think it's an upgrade, in fact, for Sammy Smith, at least in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. And now we're going to jump on to the first of 3 major stories in today's episode, as we're talking about Ryan Preece. As Ryan Preece confirmed yesterday on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio that he'll be returning to Stewart-Haas Racing in 2024, driving the number 41 car. Ryan Preece joined Stewart-Haas Racing in 2023 to drive the 41 car, and let's be honest, his stats this year have not been the greatest in the world, but I blame Stewart-Haas Racing more than anything else. Ryan Preece, I think, is a very, very talented driver and has had flashes of brilliance here in 2023. He's come close to winning a few races. Remember, go back to Martinsville earlier in the spring, where Ryan Preece had the dominant car early. He got a speeding penalty of how bad and really difficult is a pass to the dirty air of the next-gen car. He never got a chance to really get back up there and be a contender. I think he got back maybe in the top 20, but that's about the farthest he got up in the race. But I believe ended up leading the most laps in that race at Martinsville. And then I go back to Richmond a few weeks ago, too, where Ryan Preece had one of the best cars in the field, one of the best cars on the long run especially, and has shown some flash of brilliance on the short tracks. And I go back to LA Coliseum with the Busch Light Clash. Had the best car in the field in that race. Unfortunately, had, I think, an engine failure. Something broke in that car and cost him a shot and an opportunity. So I'm really glad to see that Ryan Preece is returning to SHR. And I've already mentioned this with the Eric Almirola news and stuff that potentially is coming really, really soon. Ryan Preece is not the problem with Stewart-Haas Racing. Yes, I know people say, oh, Cole Custer has done a better job than Ryan Preece. That's not true in my opinion. I blame Stewart-Haas Racing more than anything else for the struggles of Ryan Preece. I go back to last year in 2022 when Ryan Preece drove part-time in the Truck Series. His worst finish, if I'm not mistaken, was like 12th or 13th. Which is extremely good with DGR equipment before they switch to Trion Garage. And remember, he got 2 wins with DGR Racing. He got one in 2021 in Nashville, and of course one in 2022 at Nashville as well. And there were a few other races last year where Ryan Preece showed really major flashes of brilliance. And I think this is a well-deserved extension for Ryan Preece. He's kind of like that blue-collar driver. And that's a veteran driver that Stewart-Haas Racing is really going to need, because Ryan Preece, of course, is a veteran of the NASCAR Cup Series. He drove in the Cup Series in 2019, 2020, and 2021. But he's also a graded veteran driver who is also someone who knows how to get it done behind the wheel. The hope, though, for Ryan Preece in 2024 is I need to see a little bit more improvement going into next year, which if Stewart-Haas Racing can get their equipment better in 2024, which, let's be honest, SHR, I'm a little worried about this team. They're losing Kevin Harvick at the end of 2023. Granted, they are going to be getting Ronnie Chillers once again in 2024. And, of course, they are going to be getting Ronnie Chillers and, of course, Josh Berry next year, which I don't think Josh Berry is Kevin Harvick, and I don't see him as a Kevin Harvick light. I think Josh is a good driver, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's going to set the world on fire next year with Stewart-Haas Racing. It wouldn't be surprised if any of the SHR cars make the playoffs. I don't think, in fact, or any of them are going to make the playoffs in 2024. But again, I am very happy to see that Ryan Preece is returning to Stewart-Haas Racing, which confirms at least 3 of the drivers for next year in 2024. Obviously, Chase Briscoe is returning to the 14 next year in 2024. He's got a multi-year deal, so he'll be at the team in 2024 and effectively 2025 as well. Then, of course, you have the other driver, that being Josh Berry, who'll be driving the 4-car at least for the next few years. He's bringing, I don't know what sponsors he's going to be bringing next year because they're losing that Busch money. And then, of course, you have Ryan Preece, who is returning to the team. And then, of course, we can already talk about the 10 car, but it sounds more than likely at this point that Eric Almirola is more than likely going to be maybe coming back next year, though it does sound like there's a chance he does retire. And we do know that Stewart-Haas Racing will have 4 cars once again in the 2024 season. But like I said, I am very glad to see that Ryan Preece is returning in 2024 because I think he deserves another year. The guys are really, really good. It's just that Stewart-Haas Racing, like I've already mentioned multiple times, Stewart-Haas Racing has been struggling, and I think that team really needs a major rebuild going into the 2024 year. I wonder if he'll keep Chad Johnson, though, because I think Chad Johnson has been kind of the issue as well, because I don't think Chad Johnson is the greatest crew chief in the world, in my opinion. He didn't really do good with Kyle Larson outside of 2017. He struggled with Tony Stewart in 2014, 2015, and at times struggled with Mark Truex Jr. as well. So I don't think Chad Johnson is the greatest crew chief in the world, but him and Ryan Preece have gelled together, and that's something that I think you need. You need someone who has that veteran experience, and I think that both of them do bring that veteran experience. Nonetheless, I'm glad to see Ryan Preece back. Hope he can improve next year in 2024, but I think for him to be a playoff contender, Stewart-Haas Racing is going to need to have a major, major rebuild. So we'll see what happens if they do have that major rebuild, but nonetheless, glad to see that Ryan Preece will be back in the 41 car in 2024. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next major story of today's episode as we are talking about Spire Motorsports. Now, if you've been paying attention to social media over the last couple days, you have seen this rumor creeping up. According to an account called Private Porno 69, there was rumors of Spire Motorsports potentially buying Kyle Busch Motorsports up, including the shop. Well, this morning, it was reported by not just Jordan Bianchi, but Adam Stern as well, but also Bob Pockrass, that Spire Motorsports is going to be purchasing Kyle Busch Motorsports later today, and the announcement is expected later today. There's a lot of things that need to be talked about because I think this is absolutely a massive and major, major bombshell for many, many reasons. Obviously, Spire Motorsports has been making some massive and major moves over the last few months. It was announced that they're going to be expanding to 3 full-time Cup Series teams in 2024. They're going to have Corley join to 7. More than likely, Carson Osbar is going to be driving the 77 car for Spire Motorsports in 2024 in Cup. But also, of course, they're going to be having Zane Smith in the 78 car for Spire Motorsports in 2024. And remember, it was also announced at that Bristol weekend about a week or two ago that Trackhouse Racing will have an alliance with the organization. And they bought that third charter, by the way, for $40 million for Live Fast Motorsports. Now, a lot of people are going to be wondering, where did Spire Motorsports get all this money from? 2 major reasons. One, Spire Motorsports is an agency firm. That's how they got into the NASCAR Cup Series in the first place. They were an agency firm, I think, in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they bought the BK Racing charter for around $4 to $5 million. I think that was the number that they got, which at the time was really, really expensive for charters. But the second major reason why Spire Motorsports has a ton of money currently at the moment is due to the money they got from Gamebridge. The owner is Downtanis. Downtanis is also a co-owner of Andretti Autosport. So Andretti Autosport, or Andretti Global, I should say, is bringing in a ton of funding, and we've seen the influence of Andretti coming into play. We've seen Colton Herta and Kyle Kirkwood kicking with the team, with that being Spire Motorsports, and Marco Andretti also made his Truck Series debut for, you guessed it, Spire Motorsports. So they have a lot of money currently at the moment. But let's talk about the biggest significance of this news. It was already announced that Chase Purdy was going to be in the Ford truck for KBM next year, and Kyle Busch is going to run 5 races next year. With this news of Kyle Busch Motorsports, though, selling to Spire Motorsports, this could have a big effect. It means Kyle Busch may not be able to run in the Truck Series anymore. But it isn't a major surprise. If they're bringing in a ton of money to Kyle Busch, it makes a lot of sense, unfortunately. But it's a huge shock, and it's going to have huge implications when it comes to the silly season for trucks, because we already know that GMS Racing is shutting down at the end of 2023, because they're going to be, of course, focusing on their Cup Series program with Legacy Motor Club, and Maury Gallagher wants to really focus on that currently at the moment. So there's a lot of money going into that. But you also think about this move as well with Kyle Busch Motorsports shutting down, because KBM has had a lot of success over the years. They've been a team that's been in the Truck Series since 2010. They just got their 100th win as an organization earlier this year with Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch has won 60 races, or 62 races, I should say, with the organization. But other drivers that have won with the team, of course, they've won with Bubba Wallace. Chris Rebell's won a championship with the team. They've won a championship with Eric Jones in 2015. William Byron won a lot of races at KBM and got an opportunity to run with the team once again earlier this year in the 51 truck and a couple races at North Wilkesboro. And then, of course, he did run at the Bristol Dirt Race. They've had other drivers like Corey Heim, who's a championship contender this year. John Hurt Nemechek drive for the team this season. They've had other drivers come into play over the years, like a really, really talented guys who've gone to the Cup Series and have had a lot of success as well. And it is a major shock to see Spire Motorsports buying up KBM. But again, if you got a lot of money coming to play, it makes a lot of sense. And Spire Motorsports is no secret. They want to have an expanded shop next year, which they're buying the shop as well. That shop is going to be used to make the team much better and much stronger in the NASCAR Cup Series next year. They're going to have a bigger shop behind the KBM organization. Now, the big question, where do we go from here? Does Chase Purdy drive for the team? I certainly think Chase Purdy has a chance, but doesn't mean Chase Purdy's effectively out of ride. That could also hurt the chances of that happening as well, because it's heavily rumored that Roger Carruth could end up driving for this team next year, but there's also rumors of them maybe expanding, and maybe this could be an opportunity for a guy like Matt DiBenedetto to get a chance and opportunity, because I don't even think sponsorship is going to be a major prevalence for Spire Motorsports, considering they're bringing a lot of money and a lot of sponsorship as well. But this is a massive, massive bombshell, and this announcement is expected later today. So if we get any major updates in this story, we'll probably add it later in this episode, or we'll do a video later today discussing this. But this is a massive, massive deal, and I think a huge change to the Truck Series going forward, because you're losing a couple really good teams, and you may no longer see Kyle Busch racing in the Truck Series anytime soon. But again, you look at Spire Motorsports, they're making huge moves. I think in the next few years, Spire Motorsports is going to be a championship contender in the Cup Series. They're bringing a lot of money in. They've got an investment firm they're working in, and it makes a ton of sense. Well, it sucks to see the KBM is shutting down. They've lost a lot of their prevalent development group. They basically lost a lot of the funding that they had with Toyota when they switched over to Chevy, when Kyle Busch went to RCR. So they lost a lot of their funding for the foreseeable future. Nonetheless, this is a massive, massive, huge bombshell, and huge to see that Kyle Busch is selling this team, and they're going to be selling it to Spire Motorsports. It had been rumored, but it looks like it will be happening here, and it looks like Kyle Busch Motorsports is selling to Spire Motorsports for 2024 and beyond. I think this is unfortunately, effectively, the end of Kyle Busch Motorsports. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we're talking about Hailie Deegan. Now, I already talked about this on the channel on Monday, but according to reports last week, it was announced that AM Racing is going to expand to a 2-car operation in the NASCAR Xfinity Series effective in 2024. And according to what Bob Pocker said, Hailie Deegan is among the lead candidates who could potentially drive for AM Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2024. Now, a lot of people are really kind of surprised by this announcement that AM is expanding, considering this was a first-year team. But this isn't a major shock, considering AIM Racing has had intention that they've wanted to expand. We have seen AIM Racing at times in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, or have a chance to maybe make one-off starts with a number 32 car, which I would imagine that second car they do end up running is going to be the number 32 car. But let's talk about Hailie Deegan. A lot of people, when I talked about this on Monday were saying that Hailie Deegan does not deserve a chance and opportunity to move up to the NASCAR Xfinity Series, considering her runs in the NASCAR Truck Series. And I will agree with most people saying that Hailie Deegan has not done very, very good in the Truck Series. She only scored 4 or 5 Truck Series top 10s, though I will say I'll defend her a little bit in some senses, because a lot of those times that she's had a lot of bad luck. Sometimes you do make your own luck, but a lot of times she gets put in those positions. People are really, really aggressive around her, and you do see her end up crashing a lot more because people are very, very aggressive around her. But she has driven with RWorld Racing and the other 3 drivers who drove for a full time, that being Matt Craft and Ben Rhodes, and then of course Ty Majeski, all made the playoffs this year. Well, Hailie Deegan had one of the worst seasons in the history of RWorld Racing. But I said this in the past, and I'll say it time and time again. Some drivers' racing styles fit better in other series than others. Let's go to the Harrison Burton model. Harrison Burton ran in the Truck Series in 2018 and 2019. And let's be perfectly for real, Harrison Burton did not do very good in the Truck Series. I think he missed the playoffs in 2019 in the one full-time season he had. But in 2020, when he moved up to the NASCAR Xfinity Series on a full-time basis, he went on to win 4 races. Yes, he got eliminated in the round of 12, but he did end up winning quite a few races. He didn't win in 2021, but he made the playoffs this year, and I think he got to the round of 8 that year. And then, of course, he jumped up to the Cup Series, where I think he has struggled the last 2 years. But I'm going to blame Team Penske struggles more for that than anything else currently at the moment. And Hailie Deegan also did make her Xfinity Series debut. And I'll say this, she actually was pretty good in that one Xfinity Series race that she ended up running, where she ended up finishing, you guessed it, 13th place, finishing the top 15. Yes, that was technically a Stewart-Haas racing car, and there's not as many competitive cars in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. But now, I think the Xfinity Series is a lot more of a competitive series now than it actually used to be. And I do believe that if Hailie Deegan moves up to Xfinity, I think she will learn a lot better, because the drivers, while they are aggressive in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, they're not as aggressive as they are in the Truck Series, and drivers do drive with a lot more respect in the NASCAR Xfinity Series than they do in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series currently at the moment. The Truck Series is kind of like the Wild Wild West at times, and it's really, really hard to learn that series when it is the Wild West. Another reason why I think she actually could potentially do better in Xfinity is she also had a GT race earlier this year, which of course was a car, and she led laps in that GT race that she ran with TCR Series, and she ended up finishing 2nd or 3rd in that race in that car, but she ran really, really well, and it was very impressive earlier this year. So I do believe in Hailie Deegan. I think she does have talent. I think she has struggled in the Truck Series, but I think she could definitely do a lot better. And there's other drivers who've ran in different series who also have struggled at times as well in other series. Like Jimmy Johnson wasn't great in the Xfinity Series and then went up to the NASCAR Cup Series and became one of the greatest drivers ever. Ty Gibbs effectively skipped the Truck Series and moved up to Xfinity and won a championship in his first full-time year, and is a Cup Rookie of the Year and had a chance to make the playoffs this year. I'm not saying Hailie Deegan is going to go up to Xfinity and win a championship, because AM Racing, they're not a top-tier team. They're not at like Stewart-Haas Racing Xfinity or like Junior Motorsports, but they're a pretty decent team. And they do have a technical alliance with Stewart-Haas Racing. So, if Hailie Deegan does move up to Xfinity on a full-time basis in 2024, what are going to be her expectations and her goals? Well, 1, learn. Do a lot better than you've done in the Truck Series. I want to see her get some top 10s, at least a few top 10s, maybe 4 or 5 that year, and be a playoff threat and contender. Because next year, you're not going to have Josh Berry, you're not going to have John Nemechek, and you're potentially not going to have Cole Custer. But you are going to get some other talent maybe coming in. Ryan Truex potentially, Trevor Bank could be in the series. There's a chance that Matt Benedetto, Noah Gragson could go to Colin Racing next year. But also remember this, Daniel Hemrick isn't going to be in the Cup in the Xfinity as well. He'll be in the Cup Series in 2024. So I think Hailie Deegan could have a chance to make the playoffs next year at AM Racing, but the goal for her is to do the best that she can, and she needs to do better in the Xfinity Series she's done in the Truck Series, because like I said, in the Truck Series, she hasn't done very, very well, but I've seen her have better talent racing in a car than racing in a truck. So I think that she does have a chance and a possibility to hopefully have a better year with AM Racing in 2024. And if I was a team like AM Racing, I would have her getting prepared and maybe running a few if she is going to go to AM Racing in 2024, because certainly she could return to the Truck Series in 2024 with a team like Spire Motorsports, who could potentially possibly move up to have 2 cars next year. But I will say this, when it comes to Hailie Deegan, I think she does deserve to move up to Xfinity, at least because she is a marketable driver, and she's one of the higher up talents in Ford's development program. But again, I will say this, and I'll agree with most people, she hasn't done very, very good in the Truck Series, right? But I do believe if she gets a chance and an opportunity to move up, I think she definitely will do a lot better. So do I think she moves up? Yes, I think she will move up to Xfinity Series in 2024, and I think it is going to be with AM Racing. So we'll see what happens in regards to this announcement and when it does end up happening, but it sounds like I said, there's a good chance possibly she's going to move up. Yes, her performance hasn't been great, but I think she will do better in the Xfinity Series than she's done in the Truck Series. I think she'll learn a lot more in the NASCAR Xfinity Series than the Truck Series. So, that is it for today's NASCAR news and motorsports news video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Links go below that, and comment your thoughts below on today's video. What are your thoughts about Busch Motorsports selling to Spire Motorsports? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Hailie Deegan potentially heading to AM Racing in 2024? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. There might be a video later today when the Busch Motorsports sale does end up happening, when it does happen later today. Then tomorrow on the channel, there should be a race picks video for the Cup Series race at Talladega. And then Friday, if there's not a lot of NASCAR news, there might be a silly season update or something along those lines. We'll have to wait and see. But there's a lot of great content dropping soon that I cannot wait for you guys to check out as we get you guys set up and prepared for Talladega. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.